Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar. Our presenter for today is Nimish Gandhi. I will let him speak in just a few moments, but before I do, I just wanted to let you know that the webinar should run around 30 minutes, with about 10 to 15 minutes for questions. Everyone at the moment is on mute only, but if you have questions, please go ahead and type those into the questions panel on the right of your screen. The session will be recorded and will be available for download in the next couple of days. So with that being said, I will go ahead and hand it over to Nim.
Welcome everyone to the webinar. Let me start by introducing myself. Some of you may already know me. My name is Nimish Gandhi and I'm a Senior Solution Architect at Kinsmen Group. I have over 16 years experience in the architecture and implementation and delivery of engineering content management solutions globally. More so in the oil and gas industry, but also in other areas such as nuclear, utilities and pharmaceutical. And in the delivery of these solutions, I've worked with various platforms including EMC Documentum, IBM FileNet, Blue Cello Meridian, McLaren Software and Radio Viewport, not to mention being involved in integrations with other EAM ERP systems too. Some of you may already know, I myself am a very technical person, a hands-on person working with customers directly and not really used to these types of webinars as such, and I'm even being brave with a couple of demos, so please bear with me. I'm usually involved in all aspects of a solution implementation, which must come from the developer-like mindset I have, originally starting out as one a long time ago. Okay, so that's enough about me. Let's get started. So, what's this session all about? We at Kinsmen Group always want to make sure we know the problem we are trying to solve before even thinking of the solution. Sounds logical, I know, but you'd be surprised at how many times the solution is presented before knowing the entire scope of the problem. I've seen it myself so many times. So, what are the challenges typically faced by organizations right across the globe when it comes to managing and assuring asset information? So let's look at some of these common problems. Dealing with incidents. Have you suffered an incident that was made even worse by the fact that no one can find the right information to deal with that incident quickly and efficiently? You may not have had that incident, but are you prepared for one? I can remember a small incident that occurred a few years ago on an offshore platform in the North Sea. A small fire had broken out. While the incident itself was not considered major and there were no casualties, thankfully, it revealed some startling issues around access to information and key shutdown information. It had transpired that the main central repository was simply not available to the offshore team at the time of the incident. Only paper copies that were held on the platform itself were available, and those were outdated. Finding and trusting your information. So, do you hear every day how your teams complain, I can't find anything when I need it? Or I just don't trust that this data is right? People's inefficiencies at finding information almost always leads to silos being created, where teams start to keep documents as paper copies or in other systems. And the lack of trust in what they do find leads to them going further and creating almost their own simplified document management system, using hundreds of folders on the local file system, for example. From the many projects I've personally been involved in over the years, this seems to be such a common problem. So many organizations struggle when it comes to providing the right information to the operations group in the right way. If you don't deal with this, they will begin to find other ways to store and use that information, so this needs to be taken seriously. Information overload. So to this day, do you perhaps have information scattered everywhere? Have you perhaps acquired assets over time and for each acquisition inherited yet another system or bucket of information? How do you deal with it? How do you deal with the ever-changing landscape as you perhaps acquire new assets and therefore yet another set of information that is perhaps structured quite differently than your own? How do you verify or check that this new information set is right and of real use for that matter? A recent project of mine is a typical example, and since they found it so difficult to find anything, as it had so many source systems, the result was that they made even more copies. You may have done it yourself. You get so tired of struggling to find things, you decide to build your own little library, but when everyone does this, you can see how it quickly becomes a major issue. Duplicate documents, incorrect versions, and that's just the start. Lastly, for me, there is always a debate over what is meant by asset information. Is it the documentation, the drawings, the P&IDs? Is it the data, such as equipment tags? Well, I believe it's all of this combined. You need the asset equipment data to find the part number you need, but then you need the documentation to support that data. Having a single view to this is often a sizable challenge, as data and documents may not reside in the same system. And again, if you acquire assets, it is likely you will continue to add new systems to your already painful problem. So, given our pretty significant challenge, what's the solution? Well, we believe there are several parts to start understanding what the right solution is for you. Let me explain these to you now, briefly. The first is to agree upon a vision and make sure you understand how ready your organization is to adopt that vision. Or to put it another way, consider how your vision matches your information maturity level and evolution. So let me explain this a little bit more with two key aspects in mind. So firstly, perhaps you already have one single DMS system that was implemented to manage every single piece of information and even possibly linked to your asset management system. And if you do, can you say, hand on heart, that everything is in there right now? What would happen should you acquire an asset? Would it be imported and ready to use in a matter of hours? You, of course, need to keep operating, so time is often the biggest hurdle to overcome. So the risk is that new asset information continues to live in some acquired system, such as hard disks, for example, which I have seen, and it never reaches the single DMS, not for some time. So the vision for a one-stop shop or a single DMS, for example, is great, but in reality, it's going to take a little more than that to make it a true success. The second aspect here is your organization's ability to adopt your vision. You need to be sure that your people are ready to adopt the system, know why and how to adopt it. Be sure that the system does suit what's needed. On that last point, a common mistake I have seen many times with DMS systems is that they are often born purely to handle the capital project rather than the operational elements, with the assumption being made that the asset management system provides everything operations need. It doesn't. Like we said, the documentation is as important as the data, but somehow they do need to be pulled together or integrated. So, what happens? Your operations team end up with a separate silo of documentation that is presented in a way that makes sense to them, which of course is quite different from the view within a capital project. So, what's the solution? Set your vision. Include all areas. Even if you plan to provide a solution in phases, don't miss their requirements or you'll be destined for a rocky road ahead. And be aware of people's attitude and desire or willingness to change. That can be the most difficult thing to achieve. The second step towards a solution is, of course, knowing your requirements. As I already mentioned, making sure your solution will meet the needs of the organization across all areas, today and tomorrow. You need to be clear on what it is you need. I've spent almost 16 years working with customers in this area, and of course, if we list out every detailed technical and business requirement, it's pretty huge. But let me just emphasize the 3 high-level requirements you really must consider. Specifically around the operational side, since this session is focusing on operational information assurance. Wow, that's really a mouthful. I've been practicing that line all week. So, first of all, you need an operational view of all relevant information at all times, 24/7. A view that is flexible and makes sense to operations and maintenance, whether they want to find information from a tag number or from a facility view, such as plant to building to room, etc. And it must handle the fact that information may reside across many systems or locations. Secondly, you need the ability to control change, whether that involves small field changes or red lines into the subsequent as-building and release management of new drawings. That change control is vital, so we need clear processes and capabilities around the management of as-built documents and drawings. And lastly, How do you implement that solution? As I said earlier, you have to be sure you include all areas, you prepare well, and bring every one of your teams along for the journey. Understand what can be done in-house and where you might need the help. So, continuing on our path, we have a vision, we know our highest level requirements and probably some detailed ones too. We must now select the systems and people to help build the solution. I believe there are 3 core ingredients for our solution here. The first is an operational portal, but with a difference. We need a system that can provide the operational views of information, and remember that's documents, drawings, tag data and more, but with some additional features. It should provide navigational capabilities right from within our drawings, show associated information quickly. It should provide searching that goes way beyond the basics, finding me information that might be linked to what I'm looking for, even in the body of the documents. It should also allow me to provide it from any source of information I want, so it simply reads my information where it is today without me having to move it. And lastly, it must provide us the ability to update and correct the data it has and validate this through a recorded QC process. The second is an enterprise scalable document management system, but more specifically an engineering document management system. This DMS system must provide features such like workflows, processes, and reporting that allow us to control the whole change management aspects of asset information, handling red lines, field changes, and allow as-building to be undertaken before republishing revised masters. Standard but comprehensive document management capabilities, all the things we have all come to expect from such systems, including workflows, life cycles, versioning, collaboration tools, and much more. The ability to handle multiple maintenance projects working alongside each other on the same documentation, that is concurrent engineering. It must handle multiple people accessing and modifying the same information and ensuring nothing is lost. And finally, security controls. Again, important to ensure this critical asset information is not only secure but available to those that need it. And lastly, the implementation team, or whoever you may partner with to implement your solution. We at Kinsmen Group believe in our 3 Ps approach. The first message is, don't presume that investing today or yesterday in what may be a glorious single source system is going to solve this tomorrow by itself. But stay positive and plan so that your vision is realized eventually. Second is to keep focused and prepare well. Don't lose sight of the fact, for example, your maintenance teams need that information to hand now. They can't simply wait until you've rationalized, consolidated, migrated, and represented it. That's how silos start and continue, keeping uncontrolled copies of information everywhere. Choose your solution carefully. Make sure it can handle the here and now and not just some future state. And finally, never forget that a successful solution always requires software, people, skills, experience, and above all else, passion. All of us here at Kinsmen Group are here because of passion, and we always look to demonstrate that when working with our customers. Trust me, without passion, it won't succeed. Okay, so let's have a very brief look at 2 solutions that we know are able to address the needs of an operations portal and engineering DMS, specifically just to show you the features I mentioned here. Okay, so first of all, let's look at the operations portal, and for this we'll be showing you Radial Viewport. Here we have a portal with documents and drawings that have come across from a DMS system or other external sources available for public consumption. So first, let's see how users can actually search for drawings and documents and even tag data in this system. As you can see, we have 2 sites. We have an R4D and an L12SG site. So let's search for a specific tag and related documents in the R4D site. As we enter the site, you're presented with the homepage for that site, which details any recent updates, such as newly imported documents or new revisions, for example, which I'm sure you agree can be very useful. Okay, so let's search for a specific tag. To start off, I'm going to search for a tag named V700B as shown. To find any reference to that tag within viewport, so that means any drawings and documents that refer to this tag within the content or the metadata within this system. So as you can see, we've just run the search and there are 12 items in the search results, including operation manuals, P&IDs, and the tag itself. So let's have a closer look at one of the drawings. Okay. So zooming into the drawing, you can see that there are 10 occurrences of this tag within this drawing. And as you can see, we're scrolling through all the occurrences within the drawing itself. Okay. You will also notice that there are other tags, hotspots, and selectable areas within this drawing. On selection of these hotspots, you will see the actual reference in more detail. This could be tag metadata that has come from an enterprise asset management system, such as SAP or Maximo, or even references to other drawings within this drawing, also allowing you to navigate to them from here. Again, a very nice feature. We'll just wait for the tag selection to catch up. Okay, so you'll also notice on the right-hand side the references pane, detailing all reference information for that drawing, and again, these can be to other drawings and documents and other tags too. This provides a neater, more intuitive navigation across items in viewport. And as you can see, you can select tags from the right-hand side, and they are linked to the reference in the drawing itself. Okay. As well as searching for tags, you can also search for specific text, again, to be found in the content or metadata. In this example, we are searching for the word operations. Viewport provides a more intelligent search here, which not only searches for the specific word or words, but also variations such as operating or operated in this example. So let's select one of those manuals and have a look more closely. And as you can see, within this search, there's 73 occurrences or variations of the word operations in this document. So we have, starting off, we have operating and operating again, and operation. On the right-hand side, you'll also notice again that now we've opened a different document. Itself has its own tag references, which you can then select and navigate to within the drawing. Okay, so the second part of this portal demo is to demonstrate how drawings and documents can be QC checked within Viewport. Whilst being available for public consumption, drawings and documents can be QC checked in parallel, allowing any references to be validated if there are issues during the import. As mentioned previously, you can find all the references for a particular item in the references pane, as well as the legitimate references, you'll find the possible references. This means that although these references were extracted from a drawing or document using OCR technology, the actual tag or drawing or document that it refers to doesn't actually exist. Another reason might be that the OCR has not extracted the data correctly due to rogue characters in the content, for example. So these will be highlighted in both the possible references and QC section. The QC feature then allows someone to validate this information and correct it. The user can accept the tag references or even deem it invalid. This could also raise a flag to indicate that a specific tag has not come over from the enterprise asset management system for some reason. As part of the QC check, you can even update specific cells in the drawing, as you can see. Okay. So the last part of this portal demo demonstrates how documents and drawings can be imported into Viewport, potentially from other external sources, and in this case, the file system. We will import a report document which currently does not exist in Viewport, as you can see. So we've opened the report folder and there's a document in there that I will be importing shortly. The document itself is a simple template, and I've added a few tag references into the content. So as you can see, if we navigate to the requirements section, I've simply just added references to tag numbers within here, and then also to the summary section, as you can see. Okay, so we can close that document. So to import this report, we simply copy it to a viewport watch folder location, which can be anywhere below the site folder, which is R4D in this case, and then to a document type folder. So as you can see, this is a report, so we're going to copy it into the reports folder. Okay, so we need to wait for a few seconds for viewport to pick this up. And if I navigate to the home page, there you go. So you can see the document has now been imported into viewport in the recent updates page, and then also in the reports folder, you can see that it's now accessible from there. So let's open the document and scroll to the content, to the tags, and you'll notice the reference links or hotspots it has created. As you can see, you can select and see the actual tag information that's come across from the asset management system, and they are all selectable. And also on the right hand side, you'll see that all the tags that have been picked up from the content of this document. Okay, so that completes the demo from the operational standpoint, demonstrating how to search for documents and drawings within viewport, how they can be QC checked, and finally how they are actually imported into the system. I'm sure you'll agree there are some very useful features here and can instantly see the benefits. Now let's remind ourselves of a DMS system and some of the capabilities that it offers. In this example, we're going to use Blue Cello Meridian. Okay, so here we have the Power User Client, which is a contributor client for Blue Cello Meridian. I have a repository or vault named Kinetic, and within here you'll notice specific areas for documents and drawings, which is quite typical within a DMS. So firstly, we have the masters area, which is really for storing or housing release documentation or as-built documentation. And below here, you will see there's a typical folder structure leveraging the metadata provided for the documentation. And in here we have discipline and classification. Okay, the masters area itself is really accessible to a wider audience for public consumption, as it contains the latest released or as-built documents and drawings. Generally, no documents are modified in this area, as all change is usually done within the context of the project. Okay, so moving on to the projects area, as you can see right here. So we have a projects area for all documents undergoing change. The projects themselves, as you can see, are also being filed by type. So you can see we have different types of projects, with investment projects, major projects, for example. And plus then you can see the documentation below that, which is also following a folder structure, which is similar to the master folder structure. Okay. Sometimes in other implementations, you may find that within the masters area you have your asset breakdown structure, and then within your projects area you will have a work breakdown structure. Okay. We also have an archive area at the top there. So this is really used for housing previous versions of released masters and project revisions, and this is really for auditability and tracking purposes and historical purposes. And then we also have an objects area, and this is really to manage tags that have come over from an enterprise asset management system, such as SAP or Maximo, and build your references within this system also. Okay. So let's next take a look at a typical release document. So we are in the masters area here, and we have a release document right there. Okay, and you can see that this document itself has a specific numbering convention applied, which is the logic within this DMS. Okay. Also, you will notice the metadata associated. So you'll see the workflow status is released, and the file details information, such as the revision. And then we have the content in the viewer area. And then we also have additional metadata for this document, such as facility information, discipline, organizational information, again, sheet number, description information, any remarks, and then again, tags that may be related to this drawing or document. Okay, so let's now look at a typical workflow for a document when it's undergoing change. This is a master document, and as documents can only be modified in the context of a project copy needs to be created, as you can see there. Once a project copy has been made, the document itself can be modified, and that's including the content and the metadata. So you can see this has now been filed within the project area. A copy has been made, adhering to the filing plan of discipline and classification. The status there is unchanged, and the content you can see. So the first step is to start a change. So what we need to do is start the workflow process so it becomes under change. So we can set it to under change and nominate a person to make that change. Okay, so the status is now under change, and we can now edit the document. We'll make a minor update to the content. We'll add another small comment. Okay, we can now close the document. The revision there has changed as well, and you can also see the viewer has been updated with the latest content. So the next step is to send this document for review. So I can nominate the actual reviewer and add a comment, and I'll just add the reviewer as myself. And now the document has been sent for review, as you can see in the status in the right-hand window. I can then navigate to my to-do list, my tasks, and see that is now appeared for me to review. And as part of this review process, I can review the document and provide any markups against the document or any comments against the document using the viewer supplied there. Okay, once the review is complete, I can either submit for approval, I can reject the document, or approve the document. I think it's re-emphasizing the status there in review. So I'm going to approve the document directly and enter a short comment indicating that I've reviewed it and I've approved it. Okay, so the document now has disappeared from my task, and I'll navigate to the actual location of the document within the project area, and as you can see, the status has now become issued with a revision of 3.1 and a comment of reviewed and approved. And the actual metadata fields also have remained the same. Okay, so now we can release that document to the masters area and make that available for public consumption. So first of all, you'll see the document, the project revision has moved to the archive area for historical reasons. And then the actual master document itself as well has been updated. And you can see the revision is now 3 and the status itself has been released. Okay, so that's our master document now updated from the project. Okay, so Meridian also provides the ability or provides concurrent engineering capabilities, allowing the same drawing to be modified by multiple projects at the same time and managing the reconciliation of those copies. As an example here, I will check out this document to 2 projects at the same time. So firstly, we're copying out to project 1, as you can see, and then we're going to create another copy and create the document or create a copy in project 2. Okay. Okay, so we have 2 separate copies of this document in the 2 projects. Now I can go to the master document here and have a look at the outstanding project copies we have currently for that document. So if I select the show project copies function, I can see that I have a copy in project 1 and a project in project 2, which is very useful. Okay. As part of the changes, once the changes are complete, you then have Vutello Meridian also provides the merge with master function, the require merge function. This is really just to facilitate consolidation and reconciliation of documents with the master just before you're about to release the master into the masters area. Okay. So that completes the concurrent engineering capabilities of Meridian. Next, security is also another important aspect within a DMS system. And I've already talked about the different areas which users have access to. such as a wider audience having access to master documentation and a limited audience having access to the projects area, for example. You generally have a defined set of roles also within a DMS, ranging from administrator through coordinator, editor and consumer, each having varied capabilities and functionality available, usually enabled through or disabled through the menu options from within the client interface. Okay, I hope that's given you a good insight into the two types of systems that we've been talking about here and the benefits of each. So let's move on. Okay, so the last area I'd like to just bring to your attention is the approach. We have our vision, understand our requirements, and have identified software, systems, and even the people we need to help implement the solution. But how do we approach the grand vision in a way that works? Well, there is no guaranteed right way as such. There may be many and can be dependent on your business and likelihood of change. And by that, I mean events such as acquiring assets, for example, which mean you suddenly gain this large influx of new information to manage. So let's look at two such approaches I've experienced over the years with the pros and cons of each. The first is actually a pretty typical approach that most will have already followed, even if they've not yet quite reached the end goal. We start with the idea of a single document management system, the goal being to have one source of truth, one single place for all information to reside. To achieve this, you need to take all sources of information and remember that's documents, drawings, and data, and pull or push them into a single system. Documents and drawings are usually migrated into the new system, so they are purged, cleansed, checked for validity, applied with metadata, and loaded into the new system. This process, of course, can take some time. In fact, I've seen data migration exercises take from days to years. However, here at Kinsmen Group, we have now developed ways to improve that greatly. But nonetheless, there is work to be done to achieve this properly. When it comes to data, this is likely to be held in some other system designed for your operational and maintenance teams, the likes of Maximo, SAP, JD Edwards, Primavera, for example. So you may look to push this to your DMS, and in some cases have custom integrations between the two to link the documentation to your data. With a populated DMS and the availability of data, you then look to provide operational views of this, generally via some type of portal, since those teams can often be mobile or offshore. This portal, as we've already looked at, must provide those users with specific views to find information quickly. Now, here is where it can become a challenge. Let's assume you acquire an asset and suddenly receive a whole new set of drawings and documents, but perhaps very little data. Although it's true to say that an asset transfer sometimes does include a data extraction in some cases, this is not always the case, particularly for older assets. So it may well be down to the buyer to decipher and extract any data held within the drawings, such as equipment tags from P&IDs, for example. Either way, again, you have a migration exercise to undertake to load this to your single DMS. And this again can take some time, and that time can be extended if indeed you also have to try to extract all the data to populate your EM or ERP system too. So what happens? Well, silos of information are the risk here. As soon as anything takes time, you will find your operational teams stifled by the inability to access what they need. So they really have little choice but to formulate some other way to store and manage this information. They need to safely operate and maintain the asset. They don't have a choice. They might use the information in whatever format it currently resides, and by this I don't exclude hard disks. As I've said previously, I've seen this happen. But whatever it is, they are forced to use, and even if it is intended to use as a temporary measure, it can become a long-term problem all too easily. So, the second approach. This is actually not that different from the first, but is aimed at addressing the risk of information silos due to the time it takes to move these vast quantities of information. It also provides other benefits too. So let me explain. As you can see here already, the difference is that We feed all our information sources, and again that's documents, drawings and data, not directly into the DMS but instead into an operational portal that also provides some quality control functions. This immediately gives us access to everything, regardless of where it all lives today, with the added benefit of allowing your teams to cleanse and QC that information as a complete picture of the asset before it hits the DMS. That cleansing can be done as you go or as a specific task, but regardless of how you decide to do it, the information remains accessible for ongoing access. That cleansed and validated information can then be fed into the DMS, which is therefore the master source for all information as before. But the path to getting it into that DMS has been made more efficient whilst remaining 100% accessible throughout. So, the effect of a new asset acquisition is simply that we point our operational portal to that new source of information. Again, regardless of what system or structure it resides in today, so that we can immediately continue to operate and maintain the asset safely, but also commence a QC and validation exercise to get the right information we want in our DMS. And as I've highlighted these two products already today, you can now see where they fit into this approach, since they have had the right features and capabilities for this to succeed. Radial Viewport as the operational portal, and then Blue Cello Meridian as the eventual target DMS. So, do you want to know more? Well, we have a demo of both Viewport and Blue Cello Meridian, which you can download and which will be available after this webinar in a couple of days. We also have various white papers currently available on our Kinsmen Group website. We also have a business fable that highlights some of the results of poor information management in an operational world in a semi-humorous way, which makes interesting reading, which I would really recommend. So, and a reminder of our next two webinars in this series. June 28, we will outline what we are calling our Smart Deliverables Management approach. And on July 19th, we'll share ideas and thoughts on how we can improve the project handover exercise. If you're not already registered, please visit our website at kinsmengroup.com where you can sign up. So at that, thank you for listening, and I'll now hand over to Jessica for any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nim. Now, since you have a mouthful of asset information assurance operations, we're going to go ahead and let some of our other experts answer a few questions. Now, I'm going to read the questions as they come in, but or as they came in, but we only have a few. Let's see, we have about 5 minutes here. So if you don't get to your question, we promise to get back to you. Let's see here. Okay, so you say it's almost immediate to get a view into acquired asset data. What is really involved and how long can it take?
Hi Jess, yeah, this is Paul Cheetham here. I'll take that, Nim, if you prefer, to save your voice a little.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, good question, and Nim's touched on it a number of times. We think this is a way to get to this information and get to it quickly and use it more quickly. So, you know, what's involved and how long does it take? So basically, the difference here is with a tool like Viewport, for example, we essentially point the system to your source data, whatever that source information might be. And hard disk have been mentioned and file shares, but it could even be another DMS, an output from something like that, or whatever that you've received during your asset acquisition. Wherever that content is, you point Viewport to it. Viewport consumes it. It leaves the source intact, so don't think it sort of moves it. It basically points to that and consumes it, and it gives you this view of all that information, and then gives you the ability to then clean it up, check the quality of the equipment data information, etc., fix that up, and then it can export out the other end again, which then can go on to Meridian or any other DMS for that matter. In terms of how long that takes if you acquire an asset, I think that's the question. Well, it's a difficult one to answer directly, I suppose, but to give it some context, really, from the receipt of that information within literally a couple of days, because really the work is just to point the Viewport to that data source or information source. and a small amount of configuration to say, this is the kind of tag patterns I'm looking for, this is how my equipment tags or that particular asset equipment tags, what they look like in terms of patterns, so that the system can intelligently try to decipher and determine what's a tag. And that configuration and the pointing and so on probably takes anything from just 2 or 3 days to like 10, 15, 20 tops or something like that, just to give it some context. You're not talking weeks and months here, you are absolutely talking days to do that. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, let me go to the second one that came in here. Let's see. Can you use poor quality scan drawings?
I'll take that again if you don't mind, Nim. He's taking a rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, without that, there really wouldn't be a good solution, I think. As Nim said during the session, that the ability to read this information and to access that dynamically and do all this hotspotting about is all good and well. But if you have to feed it the most perfect P&IDs, for example, then you're going to be in trouble, particularly if it's an old asset, as a lot are that get transferred. So yes, I mean, scan, TIFF, PDFs, whatever it may be, the viewport tool, we've worked very closely with the Radial group actually to get really good quality OCR extracted from it. So we can bring out text, we can extract all that information in what you would call pretty poor documents, to be honest. I would never say there are no exceptions to that, but the best way to prove it, the best way to demonstrate it is to prove it. And what we've done with a number of clients already is to ask them to send us some sample files. And in short order we can kind of demonstrate how it looks, what comes out, what the result is, so you know it's the right tool for you. So we're open to that. So if you are interested in seeing how we could help you with yours, then just contact us and we'll by all means share that with you.
All right, let's see the next question here. Meridian can also manage tag data, so can't I just use that alone?
Shall I take that as well, Nim? Sorry. I'm on a roll now, I might as well. I don't like to sit silently for too long. So, yeah, I mean, the answer is yes, of course it can. I mean, Meridian, that you've seen, if you are a Meridian user, you'll know it can handle tags and tag objects, and you can link to documents and drawings and so on. There's no doubt about that. What we've done here, what we're presenting here, though, is looking at what we believe is a fuller solution to address not only the end goal, but how you get there, the journey there, and dealing with these, acquisition of assets that can happen. I mean, to be honest, I mean, we've been dealt with a number of customers who've acquired assets, and they tend to acquire it. Some they don't know anything about it till the Monday morning. It's just dumped on them, get a lot of information, they have to deal with it. And this is where a tool like Viewport, I think, can help support the Meridian sort of system by taking that in quickly, allowing your users to still access it through your operational mode. There's no waiting for that to happen while we try to work out how best to get it into your well-constructed and well-configured DMS. We let your teams work with it, but at the same time then the goal is always to pull it out at the back end, but your operational teams are always using it. So the short answer is yes, you could use Meridian for that. You have to do that fixing extraction at the front end, if you like, but we see a solution here where you can pull it through the viewport. I mean, think of viewport almost like, in that regard, as a migration tool, perhaps. Even if you just do your P&IDs, not all your documents, but take your P&IDs, put them through this machine, if you like, or this tool. You're giving your users access to the files immediately, but you're also then extracting this information that you don't have elsewhere, perhaps. You've just got it in the drawings themselves, and this will give you a huge data set for then you to export, to put into Meridian or any other DMS, and or into your asset management system as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Paul. We are out of time now. A big thanks to Nim for definitely for being technical. I think you did a really good job. And thanks to all the attendees. We really appreciate your time. So if you'd like to know more about Kinsmen Group, please contact us online or give us a call. We'd be happy to speak with you. Thanks again for your time, and have a great day.